Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. We are very excited for our session today. We have a special guest, Michael Kennedy. I'll give it one more minute for people to come in and we'll go ahead and get started. All right, Darby, Michael, are you ready to kick it off?
Ready.
Well, thanks for joining, everyone. Today is our All Things Teams and Government call. We are kind of doing a phase 2 of our discussion from last month, our Skype to Teams transition, and we've invited our peer Michael Kennedy on to discuss his STAART for Teams methodology. We'll get a little bit more into that as we go on, but basically it's a foundation that builds off of some of our change management fundamentals that we learned last time in our session. So we'll kick it off how we normally do. We'll start with our introductions. Uh-oh, my screen looks like it's freezing up on me here. Darby, if you want to go ahead and introduce, I'll see if I can troubleshoot this.
Okay. Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're tuning in from. My name is Darby O'Brien. I am a customer success manager at Microsoft based on the East Coast out of Reston, Virginia.
And sorry, all, looks like my screen is freezing up on me. I can't get over to our pictures, but my name is Bridget Ballard, and I'm a customer success manager based on the Pacific Northwest, and I cover customers across Washington, California, and Nevada. I'll pass it over to Michael to introduce himself. He is our peer based out of the state of Texas. Michael, would you like to do a brief introduction?
Sure. Hey, everybody. My name is Michael Kennedy. I've been working in the Microsoft ecosystem for a frighteningly long time, about 25 years. And as Darby and Bridget said, I cover the state of Texas, so the state of Texas agencies, and I also cover the city of Austin, which is our state capital.
And sorry, everyone, I had some great pictures so you could put a name to the face, but looks like my screen is not allowing that. So Michael, I'm actually going to take mine down and go ahead and share out your presentation, if that's all right.
Sure, that sounds great.
If I can. All right, it is completely locked up on me right now.
Isn't that fun?
Like everything. Okay, can you try clicking share and see if it will override for a second?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, let me see if that transitions. Okay, I think I'm still seeing your intro slide, Bridget.
Okay, I am gonna have to join from another device. Mine is completely conked out on me right now. So Darby, are you able to see Michael's content? Or are you still seeing mine?
I see Michael's content.
Okay, perfect. So I'm so sorry for the technical difficulties, everyone. I will go ahead and join from my phone. But to kick it off, like I mentioned, we are going to be covering Michael's STAART for Teams methodology. And for the sake of time, Michael, do you just want to go ahead and kick it off? We can kind of wrap up with my agenda later on. Thanks so much for bearing with me.
Sure, sounds good. Hey, this is part of flying without a net and doing live events versus recording them. So not a problem at all. So STAART for Teams, where this came from is I worked for Microsoft for about 10 years, from 2000 to 2010. I worked in the partner ecosystem for about 10 years, and then I came back. And when I came back into this role of Modern Work Customer Success Manager, what I found was that it wasn't for lack of content and lack of resources for our customers. There was just too much. And so my goal was to boil down and really create a curated set of not just content, but also processes and workshops that could be done to help our customers. I originally created this last year, and it was around Teams adoption. And then I really saw a need to expand it for this year. And so if we look at STAART for Teams, and we kind of look at, okay, what is STAART for Teams? What it stands for, and it does have two A's in it, it stands for Strategic Technology Adoption and Architecture Reference Template. Strategic Technology Adoption and Architecture Reference Template, STAART for Teams. And so what STAART for Teams really is, it is a repeatable, proven approaches that we have seen over hundreds of engagements, both with public sector as well as commercial sector. It's implementation best practices. It's an engagement model that involves not just your IT groups who we love working with, but also with the business groups. And so what are the business needs, and how do we incorporate the business needs into what we're bringing forward and the capabilities that we have. And Darby, are you seeing my second slide? It's a white slide that says, what is STAART for Teams?
I'm no longer seeing your slide deck.
All right, let me share again, because I thought it stopped sharing.
A lot of technical difficulties today.
Yes.
Not a problem. I think it should be coming. Okay, excellent. And so it also comes with a user communication plan and an integrated training plan. What we've seen over the last, well, really, I think all of us who've been working with technology for a while is if we don't have a proper way to communicate to our end users, these capabilities that are available for them, and we don't have an integrated training plan into this, our initiatives then really become IT initiatives, and our end users feel like, okay, what is IT doing to us versus what is IT doing for us? And I worked in IT for a long time, so I know our goal is to help our end users and give them modern work technologies, but sometimes unless we really communicate what's happening, why it's happening, and then really help them understand how to use it and use it really well, then it more feels like we're doing something to them. Another part of that is we want to make sure that we have post-implementation support. So when this is over, a lot of you probably have either a Premier agreement or it can be called a unified contract, and you get to work with what used to be called a TAM, Technical Account Manager. Now we call it a CSAM, a Customer Success Account Manager. If you have that level of support, then we absolutely integrate this in. And then we also have the customer success managers like myself and Bridget and Darby. And if you come from a different region, then you most likely have a customer success manager aligned to you. And so we really want to have this ongoing engagement with you. And so when we look at...
I just lost your slides again, Michael.
Did. All right. I love it. There's nothing like a continuous technical challenge to keep us on our toes. And Darby, if you can check the chat and just make sure that they can still hear me, even though my sharing keeps dropping out, that would be great.
Yep.
So a lot of you might have heard of a gentleman named Simon Sinek. He wrote this book, Start With Why. And what we really found is that when we are embarking on an initiative to really roll out a new technology or a new way of doing work, starting with the why we're doing this and really landing on a very powerful why is an important part of being successful. And so let's see if my slides are going to update there. Yeah, perfect. So this is the book, Start With Why. And so what Simon Sinek did is he created this thing that he calls the golden circle. And it really is just like a target with three things. And in the middle, you have why, and then you have the what and the how. And so the why can be really powerful. So I worked with one of my customers' teacher retirement system, and their why was they needed to increase the return on investment in the $167 billion fund that they have that is the retirement for the state of Texas teachers. So the why was we need to get the best investors across 13 asset categories to work for us and we need to attract and retain the best and brightest people, and we need to give them the ability to work very seamlessly and collaborate very seamlessly together so that we can get the best return on investments. That was their why. And then we did a series of workshops and engagements that really figured out that the what and the how. The what was creating a modern work and highly accessible work place, digital workplace, and the how was leveraging Teams. It turned out was their how. And so when we start with why, then when the challenges come about, which they always do, then we can go back to the what is the why? Why are we doing this? So that came up several times on that big engagement we did with the teacher retirement system, and we were very successful in navigating those challenges because of the fact that we were super clear about why we were doing this. And so, and I'm waiting for my slides to catch up here. What I have on the slide now is the 8 facets of change and adoption management. Are you seeing that, Darby?
I sure am.
Okay, excellent. So one of the things that was very successful about the engagement that we did with Teacher Retirement System, TRS, is that we had our executive sponsors. So we had executive buy-in to the why that we were doing things, and then we worked with the CIO and the CIO's team so that we had we knew our what and we knew our how, but the why we kept coming back to. We also, and this is really leveraging the ADKAR methodology that you spoke about last month. The champions is a big part of the ADKAR methodology of getting, you can call them influencers, champions, early adopters. And so really getting them involved early is super important. A lot of projects just really focus on this central section, which is the comms and the learning. We're going to send a bunch of emails and we're going to let people know it's coming. 6% of emails get read in a typical organization, so they probably missed it, and then they were surprised when 6 months later, after you've been communicating for 6 months, that something changed. And so unfortunately, that's kind of true. And so then we have maybe some learning, some training that's available, but maybe it's not done in a really easy to use format, and it's a scheduled training. And so instead of just focusing on this area, we're going to really focus on this whole thing. And then we're also going to anticipate that we're going to get resistance, and we're going to have proactive plans in place for when that occurs, because it's going to occur. And then we're going to be able to quantifiably monitor the change and make sure that what we are trying to get across is actually happening. So that's kind of all the foundation of what we're doing. So what STAART for Teams comprises of is it comprises of 4 different what I call foundations. We have the adoption foundation, the communication foundation, the learning foundation, and then what we call the digital transformation foundation. Adoption is where we really focused last year. So this is all about removing the guesswork from how we're going to successfully plan and deploy and have adopted Microsoft Teams. Most of you already own this technology, so this isn't something that you're buying, it's something you already own, but let's maximize our capacity to fully leverage this across your organization. What I've seen, we went from about 7,000 users of Teams this time last year to we now have about 95,000 users of Teams across Texas state agencies and the city of Austin. And we're getting to a point of really ubiquitous use of Teams across all of our agencies. We have one agency that hasn't started deploying it yet. All others are either fully deployed and fully adopted or partially deployed and partially adopted. And so there's also a Skype to Teams transition that is part of this, and then really defined timelines with a governance and security plan. And so when we click in and we look at this adoption and support foundation, what it really focuses on is a series of phases for the project right across the top here. So we have a discover phase, an envision phase, a validate and define, and then commit and onboard. And each of these phases has a series of workshops in them. And we think about this in the same way we would think about an agile-based project management project. And so we think about it in terms of sprints and things that we're going to do. And so the way that I like to have this week 0 is sort of like a sprint 0 with an agile project if you've done agile. And these are things that we might want to do in preparation for us getting started with rolling out and adopting Teams. Each of these workshops are workshops that are part of your unified contract if you have a unified contract. And if you don't have a unified contract, that's fine. If you work with a partner, then depending on the partner you're working with, and I can work with Bridget and Darby if you're looking for a partner to work with that really understands how to use this kind of a methodology, whether they call it STAART for Teams or really just take you through a series of workshops, then we have some great partners that are Microsoft certified partners and might be on your approved vendor list for your state. And so we can go through these series of workshops and notice that these are workshops for users. So this is for the business as well as for IT, and then also for your support department, because we really want to make sure that we don't get out over our skis and start promising things to our end users that we're not ready to support. And then we also put together this strategy and roadmap. So this is the success plan. And the success plan, in that success plan, we marry up the IT enterprise roadmap with what we call user journey maps. So where do the users need to go? What are the capabilities they need to get their job done? And how do we align the IT roadmap with the user journey map and maybe some user personas that we've done? And what that gives us, it allows us when the end users in their user community, maybe a particular advanced business group, where they're really chomping at the bit to have some features, and maybe if you don't provide those features, they're just going to go around IT, and they might just pull out their credit card and buy Slack, or they might start using Box or Dropbox or something that is not integrated into your compliance and your security plan. And so when we're able to communicate, this is our plan, this is our roadmap, and what you're asking for is on our plan, and it's coming in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, a month, then we find that our business groups are much more patient when they know it's coming, and then we have this dedicated plan that we've worked on together. And so we'll go through again a series of these workshops, and then as we onboard and we activate teams and we do the end user enablement, and if we're using any sort of bots to answer first line of questions to support our help desk, we can activate those. In some states, in Texas, well, I won't get into that, but a lot of our customers use Teams as a phone system. But a lot of our customers already have something like Cisco, and Teams and Cisco, both Cisco phone system as well as Cisco WebEx Rooms, are completely integratable through a technology called VDI or a third-party partner like PEXIP, PEXIP. And so we can work very well together with your existing infrastructure and hardware. And so when we think about adoption, this is the Adoption Support Foundation. So if you haven't rolled out Teams at all, this is a great structured approach that can be done in a relatively short amount of time. It doesn't have to be done in 5 weeks. This is really all about, do we have project manager? Can we get the meeting scheduled? Can we get the right people in the room? And can we keep progressing down these milestones that we need to do? If this takes 3 months or 6 months, then that's better than infinite number of months. But it's we can really see where we are by taking this structured approach. And what we found is that by going through this approach, we really removed a lot of the uncertainty. We removed the concerns that our friends in the security group that are responsible for keeping us all safe, keeping us from getting hacked, and our network from being shut down. We can work closely with them to make sure that their voices are heard, and that the user voices are heard, and the capabilities are rolled out, and that everybody really has an understanding of what's possible using these modern tools. So that's the Adoption and Support Foundation. This is critical to get Teams rolled out effectively. The next foundation that we've really focused on is communications, because as I said earlier, if we just turn it on, I actually had a customer, this is years ago, but the CIO said, and I was a little bit shocked to hear this, he said, my job is to turn on capabilities. If they don't like it, then that's just tough. And I was like, okay, that's one way to roll. Good luck with that. And so I find that most of my customers are more interested in having a much more collaborative relationship with the end users and with the business community that they get to serve. And so the Communication Foundation is all about using the technology you already own to create a communication plan that is going to get users excited about what is coming and get your business groups excited about what is coming, and also take into account their voices and what they need, and then roll that into a communication plan. And so we have a series of workshops, and these can be, they can be an hour workshop if we really want to get very defined, depending on the size of your organization, or you have multiple departments that are all in one tenant. We need to have a very structured communication plan each. This can certainly scale out. And what it's all about is coming up with your communication plan. And then we have some great tools that are available to you at no additional charge that can help you with this communication, so that we can move away from just using email and use some more modern tools that I'll go into in just a second, that you can use to have a communication capability that results in more of your messages being read and more action being taken on those messages, because it doesn't do us a lot of good if we send out a lot of messages and they either don't get read or they don't get clicked through and the action taken that we're wanting. We also need a way to take a look at, are we being successful? And so we measure a lot of the things that we do in organizations. Communication should not be any different. So are we getting the reads? Are we getting the responses? Are we getting the click-throughs? If our goal is to get our end users to take training, are they actually signing up for the training? And so part of the foundation, the communication foundation, is the analysis around whether that is working or not. And then as y'all probably spoke about last time, a big part of ADCAR is the OCM, the Organizational Change Management. I've also seen it called ACM, Adoption Change Management, that goes along with getting people to work differently. It's not just about giving them capabilities. It's also about helping them understand what it's going to do for them, how it's going to help them. And then sometimes we're going to be taking away these other things that you used to use. And so this is the new way of doing work. And creating that champions network, or the early adopters or the influencers, is a critical part of that, because they'll see people in my department are using this, they're having success. I have a peer I can go to and ask questions, because I might be a little bit intimidated to go to IT and ask questions. And so all of this is part of being successful. And so we'll typically start with a pilot of communication and test to make sure all the tools are working. We might do some tools refinement, and then we roll it out. Now, these foundations, the Adoption Foundation, Communication Foundation, we didn't have the Communication Foundation last year, and so we just did the best we could by using email to communicate what was coming to our end users about Skype retirement and about rolling out Teams. And we definitely met with success, but we found that if we communicated more effectively, we could be even more effective. And so now what we're focusing on is using, through the Adoption Foundation, we also use the communication tools, and then we also give our end users a learning platform and learning tools that they can use that are part and parcel of this whole process. And so again, we go through some workshops where we discover, do you have a learning management system, an LMS? Is your LMS, does it have content that you can leverage for Office 365 training? The good news is there is a free, I shouldn't say free, it's included with your subscription. There is an included with your subscription platform called Learning Pathways. I'm going to show you that in just a second, that you can run in your own SharePoint environment that will allow you to offer all of the Office 365 training without having to create any of it. We host it for you, but just the interface to it runs in your SharePoint environment in a very easy to deploy SharePoint site. And so we can work with you to determine which tools are the right tools and do a proof of concept around that. And then we roll out the learning with the communication while we're rolling out Teams. And so it all works together. So let's go back to the Communication Foundation. Actually, let's go to Learning Foundation here. And let's take a look at some of these tools that we have. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually show you one of my customers who was very successful in rolling out Learning Pathways. And so this is what Learning Pathways looks like. And it'll be updating on your screen in just a second. So Learning Pathways is a modern SharePoint site that you, there's directions that we'll send out to you on how to set it up. This is an overview of what it is. We have an adoption guide, which actually has communication templates and how do you go about getting your end users to use Learning Pathways. And then lastly, what really works and makes learning pathways come to life is what the Texas Health and Human Services Commission did, which is you actually pin learning pathways inside of Teams. And so what that means is you take a SharePoint site and you wrap it up in a wrapper, and then it basically becomes an app. And then you put that app in Teams. And the reason that's so effective is when your users are looking at Teams, what the Texas Health and Human Services Commission did, and their 45,000 employees scattered across 200 plus locations in the United States, in Texas, when they were actually going to their facilities. And now it's 45,000 employees all working remotely from their home. And they have been very successful rolling out Teams. And so in the upper left-hand corner, there's this little icon right here that says, Let's Learn. When you click that icon, it takes you to the Learning Pathways site. And they were getting rid of Skype and turning that off, and they had 27,000 active users of Skype. And so that was a lot of people that were really using Skype every day. And so they had this whole campaign around Goodbye Skype, Hello Teams, and talked about when it was happening, why it was happening, what the reason was. And then they had included in this, they had training that was virtual training from our customer success training team, which is also no additional charge. And they had these trainings scheduled, and then they had recordings of these trainings, both the beginner training and the advanced training. And they really looked at this, and what we found is that the communication that we send out is most effective when it is phrased in terms of not features like chat feature or record your meetings feature. Instead, we put it in terms of how do you have more effective meetings? How do you leverage Teams both before your meeting, during the meeting, and after the meeting, so that we have more effective meetings, especially now that we're all working virtually. And so when we phrase our communication in terms of how you can do your job more effectively, we found that the messages were read more, they were followed through more, and instead of just trying out a feature for a couple of weeks, they would actually change the way they work, and that was a big part of this. And so what I'll really wrap up with, I'm not going to do a wrap, is that STAART for Teams is all about creating a scalable methodology that you can leverage to be more effective in rolling out your technologies, both Teams as well as other O365 or even other technologies that you might have in your organization, and really leverage, as Darby and Bridget showed last week, this ADKAR methodology to really drive organizational change. So let me stop there. I'm almost at time. Bridget, Darby, where do you want to go from here? Are there any questions in the chat or other things that y'all want to cover?
I don't have any questions in the chat at the moment, but if there are any questions out there, please feel free to put them in the chat. We can go ahead and address them. And if we don't get to them before the end of the call, Bridget and I always post a deck with the answers to the questions. So anything is fair game. But now, I thought that this was great. I really appreciate your time, Michael. I think this really paints a picture for all the frameworks we have been delivering. So, in the past, if you have been on this series, last month we talked about ADKAR, and about each step of that. And now we can really see a real life example of how you plug in that framework with the tools that you have access to. So if this is something that resonated with you, or if it's something where you think, hey, I have a service agreement, I have a Premier contract, we can get things like this started in your account. So definitely reach out to your account team or your CSM. And if you don't know who your CSM is, reach out to any one of us and we'll help locate them.
Yeah, and I know I covered a lot of content really quickly, and so just if there are things that come up, then they can get a hold of me. We can answer those questions for you. We could have a one-on-one session for you as a customer, and where we really go into a little bit more detail. We just wanted to kind of give you a top-level understanding that there's this program available that y'all can leverage for a successful deployment and adoption of Teams.
Awesome. Is it possible that we can utilize this presentation and post it on our Sway?
Absolutely. Awesome. I will send it right over. And do you want it in a PDF format or do you like PowerPoint?
I think we prefer a PDF for the download capabilities.
It's a lot smaller. Yeah, the PowerPoint's good. There's a lot of images in here. It just gets pretty big. Sure, I'll send it over, and y'all can your attendees to your community call here can go and download it.
Awesome. Those are the questions we've got coming in so far. So they want the documentation, these templates. Then we have a question about any resources for creating the SharePoint learning site, which we can definitely provide.
Yeah, we'll make sure and include the links. Maybe you could call those out separately from the deck. And so it's a fantastic tool, and I have major customers that are using it and have found it to be very successful. And if you have an LMS, you can use this in addition to, or if you don't have a learning management system, it's a great platform to use for training, and you can add custom content, so it doesn't just have to be the Microsoft provided content.
We also did a session a while back now, probably a few months ago, on how to enable this within your Teams environment. And so we can also post a link to that video, because we have one of our technical SMEs, Glenn, who was on with us, and he did a great job at walking through all the permissions and policies that need to be set to turn it on.
Yeah, Glenn's awesome. There are a few tricks to get it going, so I would definitely look at that session, especially in GCC. Government Community Cloud, or Office 365 for government.
Awesome. Bridget, did you have anything else that you wanted to add before we sign off for today?
I don't have anything else, but wanted to thank everyone for joining and bearing with us at the beginning. As Darby mentioned, we will for sure get all of these slides and all of the resources broken down nicely for you into our Sway. Typically, we get that done the week after, so aim to see that around Monday, Tuesday of next week, but that's all that I have.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone, and thanks Michael, and we hope to see you all next month.
Bye everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Darby. Bye.
Bye y'all.